What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News. We are a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and of course, we feature a beer of the week. Today, we have probably one of the biggest guests we've had on the show. Darick Robertson has joined us. The co-creator of The Boys will be on with us. First things first, though, we have some housekeeping items before we get to the good stuff. If this is your first time you stumbled upon us, well, welcome to the party. Hopefully you decide to stay. You can find us on any podcasting platform by searching Hops Geek News. You can go on any social media platform, Hops Geek News. Join the Facebook group where we just, share memes, talk all day. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Lauren and I go on there because we think we're 18 sometimes, but we're definitely not. And
my kids taught me how to use it.
Yes, our kids teaching us the ways, all that good stuff. And then, of course, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews is how you can do so. Everything that goes into that comes right back into the show, whether it is us hitting up things like MegaCon, Emerald City Comic Con, or cool things like making coasters and other merchandise items to put out into the world and see each other, or these delicious beers that we're drinking. So first things first.
I wish we had that much coming in that it paid for our beers and cons. It really just pays for stickers and coasters.
That is true. I got a little overzealous.
That's dreaming big.
Look, you aim for the stars, kids. All right. Have big goals, and one day you're going to be somewhere. First, though, I am drinking from probably one of my favorite, every other brewery. Close your ears. One of my favorite breweries is Definitive Brewing Company out of Portland, Maine, a home staple for me. I had to choose this one because it just fit the bill. First, they're sour, then they're sweet. It is a sour ale with mango, passion fruit, pineapple, marshmallow, and sour gummy candy. And I figured since we are going to dive in some boys topics that, some of the superheroes in this world, we got our sour ones, we got our sweet ones. Maybe if you're like Homelander, you're pretty sweet at sometimes, but then you can get pretty sour at sometimes. And it's 7.7%. And that's what I'm drinking. We got if you're on YouTube, kind of crazy cool looking can art. And that's what I'm drinking. Lauren, what is your beer this week?
So I have a local favorite of mine from Tactical Brewing. I know I've had it on the show before, but they just re-released Freedom in a Cage. It's always a little bit different. It's a double New England, double dry hop with Galaxy, Citra, and Cashmere. I love when you can taste the Cashmere. It's very smooth at the end, but it's got that little bit of Citra. And one of the reasons I picked this, other than I just picked it up from the brewery, is I feel like Freedom in a Cage describes Homelander because he's all about freedom, but he grew up in a cage. And even though he feels like he's free and can do whatever he wants, he will always be in a cage in some sense. And I got it in my family business class because, Kripke's bringing all the family business over from Supernatural to the boys. So why not?
Dang. And you've got me. I'm hooked on Supernatural. All right, folks, if you haven't been paying attention, Supernatural.
Well, I got my little soldier boy.
I'm watching for the first time. And so that's true. He is. But you're not here to listen to us talk. We have a very special guest. Darick has joined the show. And Darick, welcome to the show. I know you have a beer, so why don't you go ahead and let us know what you're drinking?
Not as fancy as you guys. I'm just having a Modelo Negro.
Yeah, but those are so good. And
they are delicious. I like them on tap, but I'm drinking it in my classic 1970s Taco Bell Batman glass.
That's what I'm talking about.
Taco Bell Batman glass. That is amazing. Not just a Batman glass.
From the Pepsi Batman Super Series back in the day with Carmine Infantino art on the.
That's amazing. Incredible. I get nostalgic sometimes for like the old days when you can go to Burger King, McDonald's, and they would have, Batman, or I sometimes always associate the movie Wild Wild West with Burger King and those toys and glasses. I don't know why. I just do. And I'm like, man, I wish they just don't do that anymore with.
Yeah, I bet you Burger King's wishing they didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Kind of everybody is now. But Darick, welcome to the show. First thing that we like to always talk to our guests about before we kind of dive in is, what is your geek origin story? I know you got picked up and you do some really incredible art. So how did you kind of get into that? And what brought you to the comic book geek world?
Oh my God. I can't remember a time I wasn't in it. I've been a comic book fan since I was a little boy, and I fell in love with comics. Just when I learned to read a lot just from comics. But I started drawing as a kid and teaching myself to draw. And I would copy from comic books and things like that just to learn, try to make my art look like theirs. And my first memory, or first superhero I have a memory of really attaching to was Batman. And I had a Mego action figure from the world's greatest superhero collection that I got for a gift. And I had the removable cowl. And I took that thing with me everywhere. It was like my teddy bear. Like I just everywhere I had that Batman with me. So it's like early, and that was like 4, 5, you know. So I have like really all this stuff is really deep in my brain. That's why I have to surround myself with it even to this day, because it just makes me. I got to keep that little geek
it's like a comfort thing,
inside
right?
me. Yeah, but if I don't blow on the embers of that, you know, I feel like that's then why am I doing this for a living? You know, if I don't enjoy that piece of it, because that's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. When I dreamed of, you know, someday I'd actually get to draw comics professionally. I never actually, you know, now that I'm doing it, I feel like I have to appreciate it.
Right. Keep it a hobby, not just a job.
Well, the gratitude, you know.
Yeah, it's always good to kind of look back and looking at 4-year-old you who had these aspirations, and then looking to where you are now is just like, man, you know, I really made it. And
yeah, it's weird. Like sometimes, like, but it's easy to lose track. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the bullshit of it. Oh, I don't know. Is this a swearing show?
Oh, we are not a family friendly show. You can swear
good.
as much as you
want to make sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. No, we are a family friendly show. We have
the man who
one of the guys
funny.
who are responsible for creating Hero Gasm.
Right, the boys.
We do not cuss on this show.
We're keeping this PG. No, but it's funny. We need to start letting guests know ahead of time, because usually about 15 minutes in, all of a sudden they're like, wait, am I allowed to say that? Like it's like night television.
Some people don't like swearing on their shows. So, you know.
No, we put an E next to everything just in case.
My day job, I'm in the military for my day job. So it's like swearing is
good for you.
A second nature to me. And so, yeah, I don't even think about it, but yes, swear away.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's important to stay focused on the positives of, you know, drawing comics for a living. It's a very isolating job for me, because it's like I mostly work alone in my studio. So it's not like my day-to-day life doesn't really involve my job that much, other than, you know, like when I'm outside of doing my art. When I'm doing anything else, it's not like it surrounds me. But when I'm here working on stuff, I do like to be connected to that geek part of me. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's important to kind of keep there. So you said Batman was kind of your inspiration, and you want to go. So what age did you kind of pick up like a pencil and just start, hey, I'm going to just start drawing? And then
I used to just, I can, as long as I can remember, I was always drawing or doodling or whatever. It's like how I keep myself calm, and I have to keep my hands busy, or I just start to get anxious. I was a terrible student because they would always want to take my sketchbook away from me, especially in high school. And that's how I concentrate. You couldn't explain that to them then.
Somebody
but for me,
understands.
It's like, yeah, no, it's true. And then now they've got terms for it and people understand it. But when I was a kid, you know, they thought I was goofing off or not paying attention. And I'm like, no, if my hands are busy, I can focus on what you're talking about. Like I still watch, you know, news and stuff like that when I'm working, because I can take it all in while my hands are busy. But if you ask me to sit still and listen to a lecture, or in my case, like a preacher giving a sermon, you know, I just daydream. Like I can't concentrate. I have no idea what I'll be lost like 3 minutes into the presentation. But if I can doodle and just create stuff, even if it's just drawings of, you know, Batman or whatever it is that I'm in the mood to draw, then I can actually absorb information much better.
God, I'm so glad I'm the same way. Like I'll be sitting there messing around, doing something else. My wife or whoever I may be talking to, like, are you listening to me? I'm like, yeah, this is how I listen.
Yeah, I'm listening intently.
I have to be doing something else in order for me to pay attention, because I can't just sit there and stare at you. Yeah. So I feel seen.
It's an ADHD thing, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
It surprised a lot of people with ADHD, like superheroes and stuff like that. So,
surprise. So one of the actual, you know, big pieces that you got to do is you were asked actually in like the early 2000s, 2003, when the height of X-Men, where the movies were out. We had Wolverine. Everybody kind of became, you know, we grew up with the X-Men. We knew who they were. A lot of people who first pick up their comic books, it's X-Men of some sorts. But when they brought this to the big screen, people finally started to pay attention, and you were actually asked to kind of relaunch Wolverine. So
yeah, no, Greg Rucka and I got to do it. It was actually just ahead of the movie. Like, I think maybe X1 had come out, but X2 hit big, and then Wolverine was like suddenly a household name because we finally got to see him really. He was. I like those movies. X2 is probably the best of those three Singer films. I don't even think Singer did the third one, but the X2's got the best Wolverine stuff. Like, you know, with him, that whole
origin,
and the whole sequence,
Yeah,
and him going crazy in the mansion and taking everybody out. Really good stuff. Like, that was like, I remember seeing that going, oh my God, finally somebody gets it. You know, but the problem was, but that getting to relaunch Wolverine was like a dream come true for me. Like, I have drawings from when I was, 13, 14 of Wolverine and Nightcrawler and all them that I was like filling up my sketchbooks with. And I love those characters, like, passionately. Like, they were really important to me. And so to finally, I in the 90s, I broke into Marvel, and my first assignment was Wolverine 54 with Fabian Nicieza. So I don't know how I got so lucky that my very first job at Marvel was drawing an issue of Wolverine. But that was great, but I drew him in the costume and everything. So the reboot, Greg Rucka and I really wanted to do a story about, well, the X-Men tells you what Wolverine's doing when he's got the mask on and he's wearing the suit. We want to do stories about what he does when he's not with the X-Men. And then also Greg had a great idea about, let's really wait to show the claws. So he goes, one, it hurts. If he pops, like, I never was a big fan of him, like, opening cans with those claws or cutting off a cigar.
Right, because it cuts through his flesh every time.
Yeah, it feels like it should still hurt to a degree. Yeah.
But it also, like, diminishes the coolness of them if you're using them like can openers. I mean, so we thought of it more like a samurai sword. Like, he goes, a samurai won't take a sword out unless he's going to use it, and it doesn't go back unless it has blood on it. And it's like Wolverine's claw should be the same way. And I'm like, oh, I love that. So, that's the way we treated it. We did a lot of buildup in the first 5 issues before you ever actually see the claws. When he finally pops them, it's a big deal. So that's, but I really love that character, and I put a lot of thought and heart into, how I was going to depict him. But then the movies kind of got in the way of that a little bit. So they were like, hey, let's make them all, everybody make them look like Hugh Jackman. I'm like, but Hugh Jackman's 6'2", and Wolverine's 5'3".
Wolverine's short, stocky, beefy. He's nothing like that. And then
I love that. But in the first movie, they film it from like down below. Like, they're like, we'll just make him look shorter. And then in the future ones, they're just like, nope, Hugh Jackman's 6 foot. We're just gonna roll with it. He's
he's awesome. I have no complaints about Hugh Jackman.
Me neither. I named my kid Logan.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that kid, he totally loves the character, and it shows. He really bulked up for the solo movies, so
and he's doing it again right now.
Yeah, so it would look more like stocky and like Wolverine. So compared to, like, you see him in X1, then you see him in the Wolverine. It's like there's a big change.
Yeah,
but he's great. I have no problem with him. I mean, if he could be 5'3", probably would choose to do that. Adjust his height for the movie. He probably would. He's a good actor. So
right.
But it was funny for me because it's like I was like, hey, one of the things I love about Wolverine is he's this stocky little guy. Mezco made a figure, which I can't help but think that they were looking at my version.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's really that's really very much the face that I drew, and then
they had to. That's uncanny.
So
was that a pun? It was uncanny.
I get it.
Yes.
See what you did there.
Boo.
but I'm big. But for me, that's always what made Wolverine kind of unique. I'm not a tall guy. I'm like 5'7" if I stand up real straight. 5'8" maybe. But I'm shorter than most of my friends, but I know that if I'm 5'7" and Wolverine's 5'3", that's about here on me. And so that's the way and 6, then you read that. And I was a big fan of those Marvel handbooks. I had them all. Like, well, how tall is Cyclops? And I would look it up. He's 6'1". Okay. But then they'd show him squaring off with Cyclops, and they'd be face to face, or he'd be making out with Jean Grey, and they'd be head. And I'm like,
there's no step stool. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like what? It's cooler, like if he could seduce somebody like Jean Grey or take on the Hulk, and he's like the little guy, he's the weirdo in the hero lineup.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
I feel like he's more menacing too. If you're smaller,
yeah. Why?
Well, people have lower expectations. Yeah, they call him little guy, and what are you going to do, little guy? Like he gets called little guy. Runt. That's
they used to call him Runt in the comics. But but that's where I geek out. I get like all Annie Wilkes about it. Like, yeah, he's 5'3". They're like, just draw him like we tell you.
You're like, oh,
so there was a hashtag. I had posted something about Wolverine on the Instagram, and somebody was like, hashtag make Wolverine short again. And I was like, wait, is that a thing? And I clicked on it, and it was. But right. I mean, Hugh Jackman's just too perfect. I'm just so glad we're getting him in the MCU.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see him some more. No, don't get me wrong. Absolutely love Hugh Jackman's performance, and he embodies the character fantastically. Mm-hmm. He just happens to be big, tall, and great looking.
Right. But no, when they do eventually recast him, I would like to see somebody more true to the comic book, because you can't replace Hugh Jackman. So
I agree. I mean, I think they, I don't know I don't know anything about that. So,
right.
Of course. So
you get into a casting conversation at any point with anybody especially on Twitter, and it just turns into a thread of
my gosh.
opinions.
Twitter's
there's a few people.
Whatever they choose, that's fine.
I've seen a bunch of people recommend, because we asked that question once. A bunch of people recommended Harry Potter, like Daniel Radcliffe, and they had like drawings and I mean, honestly, you never know, because there's been castings that I questioned. Then I was like, how did I ever question?
Well,
like
Edward Norton. Heath Ledger proved everybody wrong. Everybody's like, oh, he's too pretty, boy. He proved everybody wrong.
Yeah,
he was like
amazing.
the standard going forward. Absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah! Like he blew everybody away. And I actually, my dream casting was always Harvey Keitel, but he's much too old now. But back in the '90s, I thought Harvey Keitel would have made a great Wolverine.
Yeah. I mean, hey, with the technology they have now, put some dots on his face, throw him in there.
Just gonna deep fake everybody.
Just get a new actor. I'm honestly like, who really knew who Hugh Jackman was before he showed up in X-Men? That kind of really put him over the top, and that's the way to do it. That's Christopher Reeve. Nobody really knew who Christopher Reeve was till he was Superman. I like that much better. Get the right person for the job.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
A lot of actors, people that can act.
Yeah. Just find the right person for the job and make them a household name if that's what you're going for. And I'm cool with that. And so, speaking of household names, though, we kind of get to The Boys. What was that like, going from like a Marvel production to now you're drawing The Boys, which is,
okay. So when I tell people that the comics are worse, meaning, you know what I mean. I don't have to describe it.
In the show,
people are like. So my cousin, I have the omnibuses because I read it summer of 2020. And so she borrowed the first omnibus and I was like, oh, do you want the second one? And she's like, not yet. And she like needed time. And then when season 3 came out of The Boys, she's like, okay, I'll take the second omnibus now. But like she needed like a moment. So people are always kind of taken back, like, no.
Cover number 1. It was my idea to put, this is going to hurt, And this was very clear that we were going to try to out Preacher.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Part 1, if you're on the YouTube.
Was there ever a time while you were drawing and creating this that you were like, all right, this might be a little too far? Or were you on like trying to continuously push it?
Well, that was I at the time when we began, we were at Wildstorm Comics and Jim Lee, and that was like still supposed to be this independent branch of DC Comics. And so we were getting full support to really just do our thing. And we didn't really think we were surprising anyone, because Transmetropolitan and Wolverine, weren't known for being soft. They kind of shaved the edges off of the Wolverine a little bit because, they still wanted it to appeal to teenagers. But with Transmetropolitan, we were definitely doing, and Preacher, both those things were pretty hard hitting for their day. And so I didn't think neither one of us was, thinking we were surprising anybody. We were just trying to tell a good story. And I think we did. I mean, I think that's why it works on TV, is because there's a foundation of good characters and a good story, even if it's shocking. But shocking, it needs to be shocking. That's the problem. It's like if The Boys if they softened it, which was a consideration at one point. That's why we ended up at Dynamite. But if we softened it, it would literally take the punch out of it, because then suddenly it's this world of negotiations, and that's just not what The Boys was ever meant to be. It's like horrible people doing horrible things,
right?
And and if you don't see the bad, how do you measure the good?
Right. Well, these are superheroes, right? They're in these. It speaks true to like when you guys have first came out with this to today. It's commercialized superheroes in a way.
Well, the idea was that the superheroes were like the comics and the action figures, all the stuff that we love in our world of fantasy superheroes. It exists in the world of the fictional, or it exists in the world of the Boys superheroes, where they're real people.
Right.
But the whole point of the action figures and the comics and the PR stunts is that it's supposed to create an illusion that they're doing all the fantastic things you read about in the comics instead of what they're really doing.
Right.
I
love in the comic,
be distracted by that.
Right. I love how in the comic that the comics are the PR and are spinning the stories.
Yeah. So, I always found it kind of funny as a comic book fan, touching on that. Like, there's every once in a while you'd see something like Batman reading a Batman comic, or Spider-Man reading a Spider-Man comic, and I always thought, like, what are those comics like? Because clearly you can't be telling the world that Batman's Bruce Wayne. You can't tell in the world that Peter Parker's got these problems. And if you read either of those books, a lot of it is about their personal lives. So, like, what are those comics actually about? And that's kind of how I imagine the comic books in the Boys universe working.
Right.
And, it's like they don't really have any substance to them. It's just another tale of exploits, like things that they're doing to save the day rather than anything that's really going on with them.
Absolutely.
So were there ever scenes that you necessarily didn't create? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know the backstage process of any of this, but I know that you are the artist. So there are ever scenes that you didn't know, like, okay, here, this scene's happening, please draw this. And you were like, I'm sorry, what? What do you need to draw?
No, I have a really sick imagination too. Like, that's the thing that made
that was the perfect answer.
Team. Well, it's true. I mean, you go back and look, my very first comic book that ever got published was Space Beaver. And I was 17 years old. It was born of summer school when I couldn't concentrate. So I was sitting there making a comic book in class that would end up being my first published work, which was weird. But but if you go back and look at Space Beaver, like I had him with like a knife and he was gutting people. And, it was like, because it's something about the idea of cute animals that look like they'd be Care Bears or something like that, but horribly violent with bones and guts. That makes me laugh. I don't know why, but I think that's funny. So
you're not alone. It doesn't.
They're cute, but they're super violent. Like Meet the Feebles, is brilliant because it's so dark. Like, I love that contrast. And that's kind of what The Boys is. It's a contrast. Right. You have this veneer of beautiful, happy superheroes, but, at the root, it's a hardcore story.
So I actually want to jump ahead because of what you said. I had a question I was going to ask in a little bit. The Boys Diabolical. What was your role in that? Because when I'm thinking cute little adorable animals that go feral, my mind went straight to The Boys Diabolical. And anybody who hasn't watched that, that's the cartoon on Prime that is associated with The Boys. Yeah,
I mean, I was involved with the one that Garth Ennis wrote. They were the people at Titmouse, the animation studio, were super cool, and they reached out to me, and I created the cover. So when he's first, when you see that episode that Garth wrote, and you see these hands going through a long box, and he finds the comic of The Boys and he pulls it out, that's an issue that doesn't actually exist. But that's a really cool episode because that is the closest that you're going to get to like the comic being animated. So, because they didn't pull any punches, and it's a really good, fun little bit. And it's actually one of the best episodes, in my opinion, because it actually shows that in real time. Because when everything goes balls up at the awards ceremony, sorry if I'm spoiling anything, but when everything goes balls up at the awards ceremony, you see Queen Maeve kind of sigh and they go, look, here comes the invaders from, Zimbabwe 7 or whatever nonsense place. And then all the people look up into the sun. They go, yeah, I see it. And then they fly off just so we can get the hell out of there before, the PR and the everything starts and goes bad with the Great Wide Wonder. But so that was but they hired me to do cover art for it, and they were very nice to put my artwork all over it. But beyond that, I don't go in and write or sit in the writer's room or anything like that for the show. And Kripke, I trust. Kripke is great. He and I have gotten to be friendly, and he's always great about updating me, and is never shy about, pointing to Garth and I and saying we'd be nothing without these two. And that's really nice of him.
Oh, that's awesome. And
well, I'm a huge Supernatural fan. So, I mean,
my kids were too before the show ever happened. So it was pretty exciting to watch that. And then Jeffrey Dean Morgan's on season 4.
I know. I saw the picture with the finger. I'm very excited for that.
Yes.
You are listed as an executive producer, though. So how hands-on do you co-exec? That's what I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Co-exec. So how often do you get hands-on with the show?
Well, I mean, other than I've created artwork for the first couple of seasons, COVID happened and I was going up to set, meeting everybody, and that was nice. But then when COVID happened for season 3, and now it's affecting season 4, so I'm not as like I said, I'm not in the room with anybody, or they don't run things by me necessarily, and that's fine. They're doing great without me. But I read the scripts, and I'm just kind of a cheerleader at this point for the whole thing, because they don't really need my input,
Right.
Well,
but
going back to
they always steer back into the comics, which is great. And
I was gonna say, sorry, the current the politicians that we have these days that are just, everything's a mess, right? Was there at any point where you're like, damn it, why is this happening now? Why couldn't this happen 10 years ago when I could have incorporated more of it into the comic books? Or was it like everything kind of fits the mold?
I think what's really amazing is how incredibly prescient the show has been. Like we've always been kind of like the TV show has been like one beat ahead of what's actually coming down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of insane. And that's just insane.
And
it's mostly because, like, Kripke's a guy who's, dialed in and knows what's happening. But, I'll never get over the fact that there was like some big rally and there was a guy there walking around in a Homelander suit with a giant Trump head. And I'm like, you
completely
do know that
missed the point.
He's the bad guy,
Are we the baddies?
Like the whole American flag cape, that was like me, like literally wrapping him in the flag. That was my idea, to put the American flag cape on him back in the day. And it was because I wanted to wrap him in the flag,
And it violates the rules of the flag too.
These people are just
the
so
same
dumb.
people that want you to respect it when they have
don't even get me
beach towels and
they're so
going back to the comic though. Well, those kind of scenes though, where you're parodying these very well-known superheroes, when you're doing that, like, I would be giggling the whole time writing this. Like, was it fun for you? Were you like, is this going to land properly? Are people going to get this? Like, what was your thoughts when you're very clearly, mocking Batman, mocking Superman, mocking Wolverine?
Well, for me, it's like, I wasn't trying. I mean,
mock might be the wrong term. No,
it's not. Okay. Parody or it's satirical more than it is mocking. It's satirical.
Yeah.
But, And I don't write them, so I can't really take. I don't claim to take credit for writing these characters. Like, the brilliant scripts and that Ennis wrote.
You bring it to life with your art.
Well, that was my job, up until I moved away from the monthly. But that was what I really loved is when the project was first presented to me years before we got it actually published. Like, Garth Ennis and I come at superheroes from a very different perspective, because as I told you, like, my first love was this Batman, this Batman figure. You guys have me drinking beer and trying to talk. So now my stomach's going to be involved in the conversation. But I came at it from a point of view that I just wanted to draw superheroes because I love to draw superheroes. It's fun. But for Ennis, it's like his take on things is more like he came from a world of like 2000 AD and Beano and these cool war comics that he showed me, and very different. The UK comics were very different than American comics, so he didn't have the affection for Batman and Superman and those guys like I did.
Interesting.
So like for me, it's like I have no desire to tear Superman down. I love Superman. Like, I love Batman. I love these characters. But for me, I've always been of the mind that kind of going back to what we were just saying a second ago about the people dressing up as Homelander, it's like, just because you put the suit on doesn't make you that character. Anybody can wear a Superman costume. It doesn't mean you're Superman, because Superman has character. He has an integrity. And the fact that, like, I believe Superman and Homelander would absolutely hate each other. Like they would not have anything. They would have nothing in common. And I'm confident that Superman would see through Homelander in a hot minute.
They would go to blows like right away.
In my opinion, like Homelander is almost like Lex Luthor if he got powers, but he's not the evil genius. He's just doing his job. And, but the fact that he's apathetic about, I think one of the best issues, you were asking about stuff that was uncomfortable to draw. I have 2 kids, and when I was drawing the issue 19, that was I believe it was 19. It's when they go on the plane. They did a great job of capturing the fear and the terror of all that on the show. But in the comic, it's like Homelander shows up, and this little kid who's got a Homelander action figure is so happy because, hey, Homelander is here to save us, and he just rips the door off. And the kid just gets sucked out. And that was really hard for me to draw because I had kids his age at the time, and the thought of that. And I have to kind of live this stuff to draw it. I have to, like an actor, I got to kind of put my head in it.
In there,
in the zone.
Sure.
Yeah, I got to feel the feelings. And so I can draw everybody's reactions and their body language in a convincing way. And at least that's the challenge. But drawing the little kid getting sucked out of the plane, it's not that I wouldn't draw it, but it stung. It was painful. But then I wanted it to be painful for the reader because it's painful for the mom who loses her kid in that moment and loses her mind. So, with good reason. So, but what was interesting to me is that's a great example of, Homelander not being Superman, because Superman would have stopped and gone and grabbed that kid.
Oh, yeah.
Or done something to get that kid to safety, or been smarter about how he ripped open the door, whatever. That ain't Homelander.
No, Homelander just cuts his costs and moves on.
He's just all about, he's
about himself.
He's about himself. She's trying to take care of business.
Right. And I don't want to say what further along happens in the comic, because obviously we've spoiled some things in the comic, but I still think they're very worth reading. And it's a huge twist at the end that I don't think that they'll do in the show. I don't know how they would do. I don't. And again, the latter issues are Russ and Garth,
right,
but and Russ did a brilliant job.
Yeah.
The hardest part, what I think is really fantastic about the show versus the comics, though, is I think they've done such a beautiful job of adapting it and hitting all the right beats while maintaining their own cohesive TV universe. And I really like that because it feels like the characters, and it feels like what we were trying to do with the comic. Ultimately, but they do it in their own way that it works for them. Like the Deep is much more hilarious and interesting than he ever was in the comics.
He's so funny. In the comics, you can't even see his face.
Right. He was just where this guy, the whole point of him was he was supposed to be kind of a joke. And and that was Garth. He was like, put him in a diving helmet. And I'm like, you won't be able to see his face. And, the joke too, like nobody could hear him. I believe like that.
And I love that it's a diving helmet from like the 70s or 60s or whatever. Like
or
it's
even
nothing
further back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's the first ever diving helmet. Yeah.
And then I gave him a cape because I thought that would be hilarious. An underwater guy with a cape. Like, what do you need a cape underwater for?
It's just going to slow you down. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd get out of the water. It's just all drooping. Like one of my favorite panels I got to draw with the comic Deep was they have this meeting at the Brooklyn Bridge, and I used to live in New York, so I know how filthy that river is. And he comes up out of like, they're all trying to like rise up out of the water and come in for a landing to intimidate the boys. But the Deep comes up and he's got a used condom kind of draped over the helmet.
I didn't remember that.
And I was like, that was me just having fun. Like I thought that was because I know that river's filthy, but but I mean that's the world that they've done a great job of capturing what the essence is, but they've taken it on a whole other level. Like they are doing the way they're parodying TV shows, and when they introduce Soldier Boy is far more interesting in the show than he was when I drew him.
Totally different. Yeah, he hasn't
he was
peed himself yet.
Yeah, he was a throwaway character in a lot of ways. A lot of those superheroes were just straw men in the comic.
Like Newman.
Because they're being protected by the PR, and that's the whole point, is that they're supposed to be kind of hollow men. But what's really interesting in the show is that there's this whole hierarchy of how you get media time, and and like going back and showing Soldier Boy like on solid gold. That's brilliant. I
added that song Rapture to my Spotify playlist, and the first time it came up, I'm like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, that's one of my.
It's on Spotify if anyone wants to add it to theirs.
I love Blondie, but I don't like that song because when it gets to the rap part of Rapture, like it's a beautiful song right up until she starts. And if the rap was about something, then I might like it more. But it literally just kind of seems to spin off into like, what word rhymes with car and bar?
Well, the one I have that comes up is actually Jensen Ackles singing, so you can actually have that version from the voice.
Yeah, funny when he does it.
Yeah, for sure.
So of all the characters, obviously Soldier Boy, I feel like was veered off very much so. And same with, Victor Newman versus Victoria Newman. She's, very intelligent and manipulative. And in, the comics, he was, like you said, like a straw man kind of thing. So who do you think has been portrayed most like how you guys created in the comics?
Huey.
Okay. Yeah,
I think Huey's. I think Jack Quaid has made Huey his own, but that's another one of those kind of me ranting and raving about Wolverine being short and like Huey's the tallest member of the boys on TV.
But you made his dad Simon Pegg, so that's perfect.
Well, no, they did that, and I was like so happy. I'm one of the happiest. Simon Pegg is a saint, and I always want to emphasize. Don't draw people into your comics because they're not all going to be as nice as Simon Pegg was to me. He happened to be a comic book fan, and I had seen Space, and it was before he hadn't even released Shaun of the Dead over here when I had seen Space. And my friend Gary Whitta, who I just did Batman Fortress with, Gary had he gave me the Space series on videotapes. That should tell you how long ago that was, and I was watching those and I could not get Huey right. And it was based on a friend of Garth's who I had hung out with a little bit, but I didn't have any photos of him. And I kept kind of waiting for Garth to get me photos and he didn't. And so I was just kind of trying to wing it based on what I remember his friend, his name was Hugh Campbell, and they called him Wee Huey, and because Hugh was shorter than me. But I kept trying to draw him from memory and it just didn't click. It wasn't looking right. And so finally I was watching, but then I'm watching Space and I'm seeing Simon Pegg for the first time. And in the show, he plays an aspiring comic book artist who works at a comic book store. And he's got T-shirts and album cover stuff done by Simon Bisley. So I'm like, this guy knows comics and he loves comics. So I thought it would just be funny if I drew him in as Huey. And so I did a quick sketch of him and I sent it over to Ennis and he was like, yeah, that works. And so I went from that sketch, and the sketch is really fast. I mean, literally I was pausing the videotape, and in those days it would automatically start up again because you don't want to burn the tape.
Yeah.
And so it would be really hard to get it back to the shot I was trying to work from. And I didn't have Google search or anything like that. But what's really weird is when I go back and I look at that sketch now, if you look at the picture of Simon and then the sketch and then the picture of Jack, it looks more like Jack. And I had no way of, Jack was like a kid at the time. So there's no way I could have known that Jack was going to be Huey in the future, but it's just a weird coincidence. But I was really grateful because I had completely absconded with Simon's likeness. And then Shaun of the Dead hit, and everybody was suddenly like, that's Simon Pegg. That's Simon Pegg. And I was like, oops. And then we released it. And this is just as we were about to release number one. And so I think Bleeding Cool did an article showing off the design drawings. And then I heard from inside source that Simon had seen it. And I was like, gulp. I didn't think it was going to blow up like that. And then I got an email from Simon because a mutual friend put us in touch. And in the subject line, it said, "Me, Huey." And I wrote him, and he said, "I just wanted to let you know, I'm totally chuffed about this, and I've already jumped through a play class window today, and this is still cooler." And I'm like, because he was working on
that's so
Mission
sweet.
Impossible films.
Oh, that is
and
so
I'm like,
cool.
I wrote him back. I said, "I did not want to exploit you. I'm so sorry." I go, "If you want, there's still time. I can redraw." And he said, "No, I really want to be in it. And this is great. I'm a big fan of both you and Ennis." And so I was like, "Okay, well, awesome." And then I went back to DC and like, "He's fine with it, everybody." And the DC's like, "He's got to sign a release." I'm like, "Don't make me do that." Like,
He's going to go back and email like, "Hey, by the way, sorry."
Hey, by the way. But then he was like, he was super cool about it. But like I said, not everybody would be. So don't try this at home. I got lucky. Right. But then that was what made me so happy, is the reason I ended up going to season 1 up to set was specifically just to go say hi to Simon.
Oh, that's
and
so cool.
so I got invited, and I had some artwork for him. And but he invited me into his trailer, and we were talking, and I go, "I'm just so glad that you're like," because I remember the day that I kept checking in when the show was getting put together before anybody even knew what was happening. But I kept checking in with Kripke, and I'd say, "Hey, has anybody reached out to Simon Pegg yet?" And he wrote me back one day, and he's like, "Yeah, he's sitting in my office right now." And I'm like, "Yes." So I said, "Oh, you gonna be on the show?" It's like, and I said, and they told me it was going to be Huey's dad, and I'm like, "Perfect." Because years ago, back when he was touring for Hot Fuzz, we met.
Oh yeah.
And he was I got to go to a screening that they did, and then we all went out. We went for drinks later, but he was saying, "Hey, like, I want to be in the movie." But then it took so long. They're like from 2009 till like, the show finally came out in 2018. So it was a long time. And he felt he had aged out of the part in the interim,
Right.
even though like Adam McKay was going to use him. But I was always of the mind that like, well, I really don't know if this character is age dependent. He loses the love of his life. That could be even worse for somebody who's middle aged, and so. But
Starlight, I feel like needed to be younger.
Yeah, that part of it would probably have been awkward, but at the same time, they handled it perfectly on the show. So and then Jack and I have got to be friends. He's great, and I couldn't be happier with how he plays. So, like I said, when it comes to who really nails the character, I mean, they're all great. I mean, visually,
Butcher's
is
amazing.
Just exactly like I pictured. And especially they've been doing it more and more, like where she's, dressed all in black and she's tearing off faces.
She's so brutal. It's awesome. Yes.
She's incredible. And they do a great job with her. The Butcher was like, when I saw the beard, I was like, why does he have a beard? But then all the thinking behind it, there's good reasons for everything they chose. And now I'm fully on board. But
Carl Urban too is amazing.
Oh my God,
he can do anything too. Yeah,
I was a fan before. Like
Dredd,
I got to meet.
We still need Dredd. Too,
he's in like everything. Yeah. He's in the MCU. He's
Lord
in
of the Rings, MCU, Star Trek, and The Boys.
And The Boys. That is, and he's playing like this character that you've gotten to draw and things like that. Are there ever moments you're just like, wow?
All the time.
Some of those things you got to think back. The gratitude.
No, no. When I watch the show, I'm always filled with gratitude because they're doing such I mean, it didn't have to be this good. It could have been a really terrible show in the wrong hands. Yeah. And the fact that it's as good as it is always gratifying because one of my happiest memories was when the show was getting put together. I got to meet Kripke at San Diego Comic-Con, and we were going to chat. And he sat down. He hadn't even started writing yet. He was just putting the show together, and we found out he was doing it. And he wanted me. And so we sat down. But one of the things that was really amazing to me is that he said, how do you see the show? How do you want it to be? And I was like, wow, I can't believe you're asking me. That's fantastic. Yeah. Like, I just expected them to it's ours now, guys. But no, I said to him, it's really important that it be funny. If it's not funny, it's just going to be a long, hard slog and people are just going to dial out. Mm-hmm. So it really needs to have humor. That's what makes the comic work. And then I remember also saying, and the pilot, you should really have the moment where Huey's holding Robin's arms because the fans of the comic will know that you get it. And if and it's also that's the point when you get on board with Huey, because then you feel Huey's loss. And if you don't feel Huey's loss, the whole world's hard to connect with, because Butcher's not an easy character to like.
Yeah. You need that buy-in. That's what it comes to, especially because everybody's so hung up. Right.
Yeah, because we're all Huey more than we are Butcher. Like Butcher's sort of the power player. Like we'd like to be Butcher, but we're more like, I think the audience more comes at it like Huey does.
Right. And I think
shock and awe.
Yeah. And Jack Quaid captures that, or that really innocence that
Jack is so likable.
Yeah,
Jack is so likable. Like I know that moment when in the pilot, when it's still like, I've seen the pilot multiple times now for obvious reasons, but I still get choked up when he's screaming her name, because his performance in that moment is so guttural.
Right.
Like I believe that he lost this person in that moment. His scream is so good. And he's just, oh my God.
It's like you can tell his brain's still catching up with what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But and they made that young woman, you fall in love with her in like less than 3 minutes. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
The banner's so good and that actress is so good that you just go, man, and then that's amazing. Like I just met her and I've lost her.
Right. And I read the comics after season 1, so I had no idea that
I was just saying, like I didn't read the initial run. It was like after I saw The Boys come out, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna go read this. And then like initially watching that show, I was like, oh my God. And then it was that moment that kind of sold me. I was like, I need to go read this right now, because if the comic is anything like what we're getting, I need to just consume this ASAP. And I'm glad I did.
Well, one of my favorite bits in the comic in that scene that like it's different than the show, and the show handled it brilliantly, but I really like that how A-Train doesn't run off. He's not having a drug freak out in the comic. He's just doing his job.
Right.
But what was really cool about the way it was written and what I tried to capture in the art was he kind of hangs out and he's just sort of stretching and untucking from his pinchy places out of it, pulling his latex out of his ass, and as people will do, and then but they're just like, and then he's like, oh, okay, and like he's not even concerned that somebody's been murdered, or somebody's been killed. Yeah, like he's just like, are we good here? And then off he goes, and he does his little trademark, can't stop the A-Train, and off he goes, and everybody's like, what an asshole. And like all the cops hate him. Like they're like, what a dick, and like that to me was like, and that's all in issue 1. So you really know the world you're living in. Like this guy's like, he's just there to stay. And that was the whole concept of the comic in the first place, was if there are all these cars flying around and buildings collapsing, somebody's grandma's going to get hurt. And then who cleans that up? Like, how's that handled?
Yeah.
Right. But no, you said it earlier with the comic, and the show does the same thing. It's like, it's not all the gross stuff is not in there for shock value. All the graphic stuff isn't in there to make you go, oh my God, like you're telling the story. And I think the comic and the show. Yeah. It's not just there for no reason.
Yeah. It'd be like, like I said, there's a reason that it's horrible. These are terrible people doing terrible things. And if it's not brutal, if it doesn't punch you in the face, then it's sort of like, what's the point of the story?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so as we start to wrap up, kind of like the final question that I personally have is, if you could have one superpower in this universe, what would it be?
So that's a different question than what I'm used to asking or answering, which is which superhero would you choose to be?
Oh, it's got to be Tech Knight, obviously.
No, I always say I want to be Superman because he's got all the powers.
That's
he's got
true.
Super speed. He can fly. He's invulnerable. Like I would hate, part of me wants to go, oh, flight, but not without invulnerability.
Yeah, because you're just flying along.
I wouldn't be a mile in the air.
Fly into a building or a bird.
Yeah, exactly. Like Greatest American Hero. But, I think super speed would be fun. I think if I could have one, I think super speed would be the best. Or the ability to stop time. That would be the other one.
Ooh, I'm a big Flash fan, so that speaks to me.
I love the Flash.
He's my favorite hero.
He's the first one I ever collected.
Yes.
I was all happy because I don't know if you know, like back in the day, I was telling you about that Batman. Back in the day, they never made the Flash. Mego never made the Flash. And I got my original Batman in the little cardboard box, and I always wanted to make Flash. I ended up making my own poorly as a kid, out of a Shazam costume and painted a Captain America head, but it was terrible. I used the wrong kind of paint. No, it was terrible. I used the wrong kind of paint.
Oh, it's amazing that you did that, though.
Well, because I needed a Flash figure. But but what was really cool is that I just discovered. I'm going to show you something from my collection as we say goodbye. Mego is now making action figures again. I don't know if you know, they came back from the dead, and they are now making. They made a Flash.
And old school.
And he's in the box, just like the ones I grew up with.
That is amazing.
That made me so happy. This makes me so happy in the stupidest way. I even love the fact that he's got a little flesh showing below the neck, because I would have been painting that red as a kid.
He's hands down, like, he is my favorite character, and I've just always been drawn to the Flash. So I'm glad you said that, because it's like, man, me too. The ability to stop time and super speed, because
that's kind of what the Flash can do. Like, he can run faster than time, So I've always loved the Flash. When that show came on, I love Grant Gustin.
Oh my God!
When that show came on, like, I would watch that with my kids, and they would not understand why I would just freak out like a geek. I would like, Dad, calm down. I'm like, he's running up the side of a building. You don't
understand. Yes.
And then when they first showed him vibrate through something, I was like, he's doing the vibration thing.
And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, he can vibrate through walls and planes, and there's
but that's what's so cool about him. He can pass through walls. He's Flash has great powers. So I'd take Flash's super speed. That would be a good one. Because then you don't have to worry about the invulnerability either, because you can phase through.
Oh, you just regenerate.
Yeah, you can just you phase through stuff, so you don't have to worry about all these things. And then flight, you don't need to worry about flight because you're running so fast, you can go anywhere.
It's almost like teleporting.
Years ago, I was working up some pages to kind of pitch being the Flash artist, and I didn't follow through with it. I'm lucky that I'm always busy, but I had worked these up just for something I wanted to write and draw, and I was bummed because when I finally saw was it X-Men First Class that first had Quicksilver?
Yeah.
Yes. Was
it First Class, or was it?
I think it was first.
No, it was Days of Future, wasn't it?
Oh, it was the one where they have to break Magneto out of prison.
Yes,
so
it was Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
And it was the Ralph Boner one,
But I had drawn, like, years ago. I still have these pages kicking around in a drawer. Made the mistake of trying to ink them when I wasn't in the right mind to be inking. But I had Barry meeting Iris at a bar, and for once he's early, because that never happens.
Oh, yeah.
In the comics, it would always be like he's leaving Iris waiting. So he's there at the bar, just kind of having a drink and waiting for her to show up. And a guy comes in to rob the bar, and he pulls a gun right next to Barry, and he's like, pulls it on the bartender, like, empty the register. And Barry doesn't even react. So in my story, and this was original at the time, I hadn't seen this in a movie yet. So Barry just suddenly, like, he kind of straightens up, and he puts on his suit, and he's just taking his time. He's like checking his teeth. He's adjusting his mask. He's doing everything he's got to do, just put on his suit. And then he reaches over and he pulls, like, just stops the bullet that has just left the gun and sets it down on the bar, knocks the guy out, says, hope everything's okay, runs outside, and then walks in like he's Barry coming from the bathroom. And the bartender's so freaked out, he doesn't know Barry wasn't there. And then in comes Iris. What happened? But the slowing down time like that, to me, it's like everything goes in slow motion for that guy if he wants it to.
No, I think that Quicksilver, that was my favorite, probably cinematic portrayal of the super. It
was great. Yeah, it was great. Like, everything's just slow. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an incredible, that would make me happy. Like, when I'm in my studio and I'm on a deadline, like, I wish I could punch a clock. And just everything freezes. I'm going to work for the next 8 hours, and then it'll be 9:05 when I resume the clock, and I'll have all my work done for the night. And,
you could put your kids to bed and freeze time.
Yeah. If I could keep time in a bottle.
No, yes, thank you so much. As we wrap up, thank you so much for taking your time to hang out with us.
My pleasure, fellow geeks.
And hey, maybe we'll get to chat down the road. I can't wait to see what else we have coming out. Everybody go check out his artwork. If you're living under a rock, please, like, my God.
And so where can people find this? The Boys Show? I'm kidding.
Number 2 in the whole world, man. Right behind Stranger Things.
Yes.
Did you see the report that we actually were more popular than all the Marvel shows?
Yes. Yeah. Like, come on. It means Marvel needs
that's what I mean. Like,
but it makes sense. It means more grown-ups want this crap.
That's true.
It's just like, I was just hoping we wouldn't get canceled after season 1, Like,
here we are.
Mission accomplished.
Spin-off.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love seeing
Very
the things that
excited for the
happen,
spinoff, yeah.
and it's a great time to be a geek.
Yeah,
Go check
it
out
really
The
is.
Boys if you haven't watched The Boys. Please do.
And go read it too,
Go
even if
read
you have
it.
watched
Go
it or
watch
not.
it. All that stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.
Buy it
Derek.
for all your friends.
Yes.
Yes.
Once again, Derek, thanks for hanging out. We will.
And if you hate it, buy a copy and burn it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're part of those crazies that are all about banning books and burning books, by all means, whatever at this point.
Buy up a bunch of my books and burn them.
Yeah, show him that you don't like a comic.
Yes.
And that's how you can show him.
We will see everybody next week. We've been Hops Geek News with Derek, and cheers, everybody.
Hey everyone. I don't have much time, so I'm just going to get right to the point. My name is Jordan Arith, and I host a podcast called Hop Heroes. Myself and two of my good friends discuss comic book stories while drinking delicious craft beer. You can find us on...
What's up, bro? What's going on here?
Oh, hey Zach. JR, how's it going?
It's going well, man. What are you up to?
Oh, nothing much. Just talking to myself, practicing lines. You know the drill.
Oh, really? Because it sounded like you were recording the promo without us. And I'm just really confused as to why you would go and do something like that.
I wasn't recording without you guys, and why did you knock when you came on? It's a podcast. That doesn't even make any fucking sense.
Hello, everyone. This is Zach Barlow, the host of Hop Heroes podcast.
You're not the host.
I am joined weekly by my counterparts, Jordan and JR, and we will break down Great Brew and discuss the comic book universe. You can find me every Wednesday on all podcast platforms, and these guys will be there as well, I guess.
This is probably why he didn't want you on the promo, Zach.
I'm the host of the show.